Hello, everybody. This is Bart Sharp, and you are on Becoming Quantum Conscious on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, broadcasting out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. And we are on cable television, Roku, UPRN website, Facebook, YouTube, Spreaker, and other internet platforms. And we're all over the world. And I am still in France, living the wonderful French life. Haven't had a croissant in a week. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's too hot. Maybe that's the reason, because it is so hot here, like 104. That's like 37 centigrade, something like that. It is really hot. And the thing about the French is they do not have air conditioning. So we are sucking it up, having fans, eating ice cream, having cold grape juice, being in cold mountain streams, whatever we can take, and about 3 showers a day. I just finished my third shower about 30 minutes ago. So I am ready to go with this really wonderful show of what we have tonight with Joseph Mach. And I am going to bring him on. Hey, Joseph,
Hey Bart.
how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Nice to see you. We'll keep it cool. We'll keep the conversation nice and cool.
Nice and cool. Well, I got my fan kind of blowing under the table with that. So,
Yeah,
you may
yeah.
see my forehead sweat, but that's going to be about it. It's pretty wild. And I met Joseph. Joseph Mark uses a lot of the techniques and tools of internal family systems as a business and counseling consultation. But I met Joseph through this really interesting man who teaches classes or used to teach classes in Austin, um, called Steve Flynn. And I just wanted to start the show with a little quote from Steve, because this guy could bring out the presence in people in a way that I have never met anyone else do. And he was so just charming and sincere, and love in it emanated out of him. And there would be like a group of people, and everybody sitting there, and they were all kind of separate, as you work in workshops, everybody's into their own little cocoon. And Steve was just amazing, and how he could bring all of those people together, just kind of mind blowing. So this is a great quote from Joseph, and when he wrote this on his newsletter. And you can contact Joseph through josephmock.com. I just said, I got to have Joseph on the show, because he is what Steve Flynn has mentored Joseph. So here's the quote, and I just love it. With skepticism and judgment replaced with tender gestures of loving connections, connectedness. Each time was a beautiful testament to the innate goodness of humanity. It's just such poetry when I read that. And could you share a few words about Steve before we start talking about you?
I would love to. Yeah, it was actually his birthday this past Saturday. So
Wow.
and last weekend was Guru Purnam, where you honor the gurus, Purnama. So he's on my heart, this recent time, and so I always love to pay tribute to your teachers, right? I didn't create this stuff. I'm just here passing, carrying the torch a little bit. So
I
yeah,
suspect Steve would say the same.
exactly, and that is what we're all doing here, and yeah, exactly. I think that's the heart of what made his work so beautiful. Those workshops is it's sometimes you are gathering exceptional people who have done a lot of work on themselves or who have um, really are dedicated to being light bearers or bringers of love, but it's in each person, and it's
Hmm.
just a matter of getting the conditions right or talking to them in the right way, drawing it out of them. And that is what I think really restored my faith in humanity and the goodness of each soul. And IFS, Internal Family Systems, has the same belief structure that there is a self in each person, and there's not these pathologizing, broken parts of us. They're just parts of us. At the core, oh, there's this beautiful self, untarnishable self that gets to come out. And so,
Sometimes it's a little wrapped up in bandages and a
yeah,
little blood and
exactly.
all of this stuff. And, you know, Steve was really good at that, of
He
just getting
was.
those people to kind of let those bandages go a bit.
Yep, and as I mentioned in that newsletter, that was I'd been to probably a dozen of these workshops where he would just transform a room, and it was a bunch of strangers, and then suddenly an hour later, you're as intimate. Hello, really full of your own love, and your everybody's armor was down, and each time it was just like, what just happened? How did this happen? How am I so loving right now and full? And so that's when I really started to study, like, well, what is exactly somebody doing? And it's, he's not the only one who's able to cultivate that, and that's what I realized is that everybody has the possibility of creating those conditions for each other, right? Even in this
Yeah,
conversation, you're pretty masterful at that, right? I feel at ease. I feel really welcomed in. I feel really honored by the introduction, even that you're having me as a guest. So those are little ways that you're doing the same thing. You're bringing the armor, whatever armor that I might be here with. Oh, you bring it down a little bit when I
yeah,
talk, and then the
yeah.
conversation gets to open that much more because you've laid that groundwork.
Yeah, and it's part in the words, but it's also part in something that's internal inside of yourself
Yeah.
as well.
Yes.
And I would like to get to that part later,
Yeah.
but for now, I want to ask you, what were some of the things that you learned in tools to get people to open up,
Yeah.
to feel
Yeah.
safe? And before you say all of this,
Yes.
you think about that. You had this in your newsletter, and you just listed these 7 qualities
Mm.
that I just thought pinned it to what your work and Steve's work was all about: safety, trust, willingness, non-judgment, connection, authenticity, and presence.
Mm.
And they sound like pretty easy words to comprehend. However, to say them in a conversation that you're reaching out and connecting to somebody,
Yeah.
uh, what can you share with us to help the audience learn some new stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. Love to do that. Yeah. I mean, and those all came as I started hosting my own workshops. I literally just asked everyone. I said, "What makes you feel more loving? What are the conditions that are necessary to that you would share? You would be more vulnerable." And those were the every time I've done it, safety comes up, trust comes up, presence, vulnerability, all these things. So it's everybody sort of understands we are all built the same way. Everybody has their own unique uh, little bit of armors that are up, but we are all essentially doing the same game. So yeah, so I would really just go through each one of those and say safety. What's a way you can get more safe in this moment? So anyone who's listening, ponder that for a second. Sometimes there are just subconscious feelings that came from us. It might be a tiger in the woods, right? That came from our
Yeah,
survival instinct, and even just acknowledging, oh, there's no tiger in the woods. I'm safe in
yeah,
this moment. So some of it's through words. You can name, oh, you are safe. But really, to give somebody a feeling of safety, words don't do it. And I've found the best way to get safety is to get grounded. That if you're in your body there's an automatic feeling of safety that takes over. So I would say, let's you and I just have a nice deep breath. And anyone listening, have a nice deep
Ah,
breath and make a little sound. And even that, making sound gets you into the body. And one of Steve's best tools that I teach anyone who's a performer or who is a public speaker, or if you're on a radio show, it's called gorilla toes. And the idea is you take, I won't show off my feet, but you take your toes and just squeeze them. Just squeeze them like you're a gorilla. And when you squeeze your toes, your energy has no choice. Your attention automatically has to go into the body and down to the feet, and it anchors you in. And so, just that act,
mm,
if I'm on stage and I'm singing a song and suddenly I squeeze my toes, there's a quality I'm now embodied. And people can really see the difference. Oh, this performer is really here. He's in the room right now. He's in his body. And with that generally comes this nice feeling of, oh, I am a solid body. I'm not just here spinning up in the atmosphere. I'm down here. And that was
yes,
something, yeah.
because when I'm up here, I'm usually in my head
Yes.
and I'm susceptible to go into fears
Yep.
or to kind of disjointed thinking.
Yeah.
And I love this tool of just squeezing your toes. I've never heard that.
Yep. Yeah. Just a little squeeze of the toes. And so I would have in a workshop setting, have people walk around and squeeze your toes, and it just gets you into your legs. And an interesting phenomenon, and this is one I borrowed from Steve, was if you have people eye gaze, look into each other's eyes just as you walk around the room, generally that's something people are uncomfortable with. And it leads to a little bit of awkwardness and giggling and kind of, oh, I don't know, this is vulnerable, or it
Hmm.
feels intimate. And so I would have them do that, and then have them squeeze their toes, and then do it. And the amazing thing is, that gives you a chance to notice, oh, it's still a little bit uncomfortable. It's still a little awkward to be holding it if you're not used to that. But most people were able to notice, I can hold the gaze. I now feel safe enough and I feel strong enough in my being to connect to somebody.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing with the comparison to France and United States is that people give you more eye contact here,
Is that right?
but
Oh.
there's more of a feeling of safety here in this community.
Yeah.
It's rural, um, and people are a little bit more willing to just put that out there. But it really has, I think, a lot to do with safety.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does create those deeper bonds of trust, right? When you if you hold, like, not that you have to sit there and stare for hours, but even if you just hold somebody's gaze for a moment, there is a feeling of trust being stretched and being formed. Um, so then that targets another one of those conditions that you need to create in order to really feel safe, open yourself, be loving. And I think what's nice about the eye gazing piece is you also can't really hide if you're doing it. it you have no choice but to show yourself, be vulnerable, and then there's that. Oh, now we're getting a little bit more opened, and there's the loving parts.
It is. Just saying hi to Julie. Welcome, Julie.
Oh, hey, Julie.
Indeed. It's just one of those many things. Uh, and one of the things I saw with Steve is that he just really acknowledged everybody for something that he saw unique in them.
Yeah.
And it was just so neat to see him do that.
Yeah, and it
Uh,
always, I think what he was a master of was there was no, how would I say it? It was always the truest thing he could say. right? So he wasn't just
Mm,
complimenting somebody. Oh, look, sometimes you could keep it light. Oh, your hair looks great today, and that helps somebody be relaxed. But he would try to really speak directly to the person, and almost it's like he would get out of. We sometimes have our personality
hmm
out front, and he would almost
yes.
find a way to just get behind that personality and then say the thing that the person underneath really needed to
Yeah.
hear. And I think that's what makes somebody, when you talk about feeling seen, there are ways that you get seen on the surface, but
Yeah.
the deeper urge is, oh, I want you to really see who I really am. And that's what he
That,
was a master at, getting
that's
that other
such a
stuff.
that's such a great talent. And can you recommend to the audience how you can do that in conversations?
Yeah, so I think some of that to steer towards talking about IFS and parts work, a lot of that does come from um, the process of knowing your own internal world. So if you and I are here talking and I'm worried about my hair, how's my hair look? Am I okay? We're going to have a surface level of connection because
Right.
what you're interacting with is, am I okay? Am I acceptable? How do I look? And if I've done enough work to know, like, well, my hair is my hair, I like myself, it's okay, then that doesn't have to be in the way here. And if I'm talking to somebody, that doesn't have to get in the way of what I'm sharing with them. So I think um, it's a result of having done a lot of your own inner excavation and exploring your own parts, and really, it's not even that you have to mm, that you have to not have those parts be here at all, but where
hmm
you can have them back off and you can say, hey, I'm on this call right now, I'm on this show, let's just be right here.
Yes. Yes. And as I'm listening to you, uh, I just have my heart open.
Yeah.
There's one thing about staying in my head and going, well, what's the next question I need to ask
Yeah.
Joseph?
Yeah.
Uh, or I blip out and think about something tomorrow.
Yeah.
Uh, but my heart keeps me more centered and more real
Yeah.
because I do shows kind of ad lib. I mean, I
Yeah.
have a page of questions and I'm almost halfway done with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it does. It requires some trust in the process of it, right? We want to be in control and we want to have all the things. Just it takes some trust, right?
It really does. To know what you're going to say
Yeah.
and kind of to be on that edge
Yeah.
of awareness. And I think that's a big part of presence. Now, if you're
Yeah.
willing to take all of your energy and put it right into presence
Yeah.
with you,
Yeah. And
and it,
presence
yes,
knows what to say and knows when to interrupt.
yeah, yeah, it has a different type of wisdom with it when it
Yes.
comes from that place of your heart, or some people would say it's from your gut. You
Yep.
know, that's your second brain.
Yeah.
And some people say it has intelligence with your brain, but it all comes together.
Yeah.
So if somebody's with fear and they come and see you for a session. And when Joseph said IFS, he meant internal family systems. I know
Yes.
we mentioned that earlier, but I wanted to bring that back.
Yeah.
You know, what are some of the things that you would do if somebody was really nervous and scared and they're like, oh my God, this is my first session with this is Joseph Mach and I don't know what I'm going to do.
So the thing I love about the internal family systems model is uh, it's very like permission based and very respectful of these different parts. So sometimes with I also do Gestalt work. It's sort of a similar terrain. And even doing energetic work, like I was saying, breathing and breath work. Sometimes doing a bunch of breath work gets somebody opened up and gets their energy moving, and even if they're a timid person, suddenly they're shouting and they're yelling, and then there's a part of them that isn't allowed to do that, and it feels like there's been a violation.
Mm.
And there'll be backlash about, hey, you're not supposed to make noise, and now you're embarrassed, and shame, and all these sorts of things happen. So what I love about IFS is it walks through the inner world with permission. So if somebody came and had a lot of fear or a lot of nervousness, the first thing I would do is, well, can we talk to that nervousness? And
Mm.
ask them to take a deep breath. And where do you notice that nervousness in your body? And usually, nervousness would be in the gut, and butterflies in the stomach. And so I'd have them tune in their attention to that nervousness. And so it's also the author of, or the inventor, I don't know what you would call that, the pioneer of internal family systems, Dick Schwartz. One of his books is called No Bad Parts. And so the idea is that these parts of us, they actually they're valuable and they love us. They're just acting in an outdated way. So this nervous part, I would let it know that I'm not here to bully you and kick you out. I want to understand you. And when you can understand more, then you can have compassion. That's a Thich Nhat Hanh quote that I love, right? Through understanding is the
I
doorway
love
to
that.
compassion. And so rather than somebody coming and thinking, oh, there's something wrong with me. Why am I so afraid? Or why am I nervous? Or I'm a chicken. We'd say, no, there's just that part is just not understood. Let's get to understand it. And you can feel this beautiful shift inside as soon as a part gets even validated. If that nervous part, if I were to say, oh, you're nervous, it's because you're protecting in some way, and you just want to keep this person safe. And you can almost feel that part. If there is a knot in the stomach, oh, the knot would get to relax a little bit, and oh, I feel a little bit
Mm.
understood. And then it's a matter of just asking it, letting it know we're on the same team. I'm not here to put this person in danger. I'm here to help them. That's what you're doing. So we're on the same team. Would you mind just giving a little bit of space in the system so that the person isn't as nervous? And sometimes there has to be a little bit of negotiation, but 9 times out of 10, these parts are overworked. They've been doing too much. They've been nervous for too long. And they will just step back and they'll just relax.
Yeah.
And then there's a little bit more space inside that the person can feel their inner world and get to touch with it.
Mm.
Yeah.
So as they're feeling it, are you feeling it too?
Yeah, and then there's definitely um, there's a mirroring that goes on in the process, and that's where it's to talk about pathways to presence and sort of why that's such a strong pillar of what I do is
Yeah.
that in order to help somebody navigate, the best thing that I can do is stay in my own presence and stay in that self energy myself. And it gives their self energy a chance to see, oh, I can also just hang back and I can also just be present. And then that's like the secret sauce. That's what gets the work done.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
gets me out of the equation a little bit. I still come in with advice every once in a while or some piece to help steer, but it's really each client's self that knows exactly what to say, knows how to heal. And yeah, and it's just, to me, that's such a better prescription than I am the all-knowing guru and let me help
Yeah.
you, poor person. It's not like
Yeah.
that. It's
Exactly. I think that's what I like about internal family systems.
yeah,
I did this really interesting tours. I'm a tour guide in Southwest France.
yeah,
It's one of my jobs, and lo and behold, a woman brought all of her friends and hired me to tour them for 10 days.
yeah.
And they were all internal family systems therapists.
Cool.
Kay Gardner was leading it all, and she's been on the show a couple of times.
Yeah,
Uh, but, you know, they were almost like shamans in some ways because they could feel that inner world of people and facilitate it. And I'm going, wait, you are doing some of the same tools I do
yeah,
in shamanic work, but at the same time, they're teaching the people how to do it.
yeah.
And it was really impressive from that point as they were always teaching.
Yes. Yeah,
Always training.
those elements of what would be called soul retrieval. Right? There's these little fragments of us that are stuck in the past, and that's exactly what's happening. Is they're getting retrieved and brought back to the present, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
powerful in that way. It's really, really
But
beautiful.
I also think that with the there from a, from the counselor's position, or is that as you notice it, you give that energy so that person can notice it easier, and
Yeah.
that's part of what you know why they pay you the big bucks is
Yes.
your awareness is almost like a conduit for them to open in until they learn how to do it themselves.
Totally. And that, what I just said about understanding and compassion and leading with curiosity, if I have a judgment, then I'm not leading with compassion. I'm not leading with curiosity. I'm leading with my judgment. So it's a great, I sort of stumbled upon this path, but I love that baked into my everyday practices now is get present and stay present. And it's like that's my job. And if I'll notice if I'm judging, or if my mind is somewhere else. I get to
Mm.
I get to police that now. It's really part of become part of my world in a way that, yeah, previously it was sort of it would be if I was in a session, or if I had a performance or something like that, I would really get myself grounded and get present. And now it's like, nope, pretty much every day that's my job, is to get really arrive, get here, get present, get things out of the way. If I have something going on, deal with it, or let it know.
And when he says going on, that doesn't mean that he's having to go to Walmart or something. That means that he's, maybe a little angry or sad about something,
Yes.
and it's kind of miffing him, and it's taken a part of his presence and his energy to another place. It's almost like it's siphoning off of him,
Yes.
and so just that it's a great thing to do is to stop
Yep.
and deal with that.
Yep.
And yeah, I love it the way you say, well, you didn't say this directly, but I got it indirectly.
Yeah.
Is that it just gives you so much more energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not paying, you're not doing the judgments, which a judgment is saying, well, I'm angry and I have no control over it, or, uh, you have a mystery about it. It's almost like that's a judgment right there in
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
And we have to figure out, well, what's the pattern of that judgment?
Yeah.
What's that? And I'm sure you have combed that like a fine tooth comb
Yeah.
of
Well, and
all of
all
your
of those,
things.
you can feel how much energy that takes in your system to be judging, or to be, a lot of, I think what people deal with is more self criticism. And that takes a ton of your energy. If you're sitting there picking on yourself for hours a day or minutes a day, it takes a ton of energy. And then you have to defend against that, which takes more energy. And there's all these systems. The more sort of wheels are running inside you, that's it takes a lot. It takes a lot out of your system.
It does.
Yeah.
It certainly does. And right now, we're about midpoint of the show. So I just want to tell everybody that you are with Joseph Mach,
Mm.
and his website is josephmach.com, and the show is Pathways to Presence. And you can just go to Joseph's website and see all the wonderful things he does. We just are talking about internal family systems, and what he does with is working with these tools over. I guess you're like everybody. You're working over the computer and stuff, so you're worldwide in essence.
Yeah, yeah. I do prefer doing in person. There's always just a little more to work with when you're in physicality with somebody. But especially the IFS tools, they work wonderfully over the phone or over a Zoom call. So
And we'll give a shout out to Zoom
yeah,
because we all love it so much
yeah,
for therapists and counselors and shamans and
yeah. Right.
uh, whatever. We all love it.
Yeah.
But also, I wanted to just say that you are on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 107.7 and 105.3 out of New Orleans, Louisiana, but also on the UPRM website, cable television, Roku, Facebook, YouTube, and other network platforms all over the world. And, you know, I really think we as Americans, we probably need more, we do more therapeutic work. And maybe I'm wrong with that, but it feels like we do. Um, and, I like to think we both live in Austin. Uh, and Austin is a hungry town for consciousness.
Mm.
So we go seek people like you
Yeah.
because we want to learn more. We know we haven't got everything solved, but there's this humility and this vulnerability in us that says, I'm willing to get help.
Yeah.
It's quite wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get a little bit juicier.
Turn up the juice.
Turn up the juice. I'll say, well, how do you work this out with a partner, an intimate partner? I know
Yeah.
Joseph's partner, and she's a sweetheart. Hi, Megan.
Yeah.
And so, how do y'all use these tools?
Yeah, they're a godsend to any relationship. And actually, working with Steve, to mention that, Meg and I, even while we were in our courtship phase, we were going uh, not as a there's a problem, we need to work something out, couples therapy, but as a we want to build a really strong foundation. Let's start now getting our lines of communication open. Let's start learning about each other's wounds now, rather than 5 years from now when it really starts flaring up. Or she had been previously divorced and I also was previously divorced, and so there was a lot of wisdom that we gained from, okay, well, this time around, let's do it a little differently and do it with a bit more consciousness. And even to speak of, we have a beautiful 16-month-old son, and bringing a child into this world, we did a lot of our foundational work around really getting clear on, is that what we want, and are we
Mm-hmm.
prepared? And we had clearly no idea what we were actually getting into, but in terms of setting the foundation really solid. And I would say
Yeah.
that's what one tool that I go back to that we use almost every day or anytime there's any conflict, is really those tools that we learned early on about yeah, how to talk. It's almost like if you're familiar with inner child work, how to talk to each other's inner child, how to
Mm.
connect with them instead of talking from our reactive parts and just the usual ways of interacting. Um,
So would that be talking to, saying, I'm sensing you're a bit moody today, and what does that feel like in your body, or something like that?
yeah, I mean, little tools like that. I think it's almost just there's an interesting thing with group work or couples work where even just watching somebody else do their inner work, you get a glimpse into, oh, this is what it's like for them, and here's the parts where it's really hard. Here's the parts where they're wounded, and she would get to see the parts in me that are really wounded. And even just being a witness to that, automatically the level of compassion or that curiosity for each other is shifted. So if she's got something going on, or if I have something going on, we're pretty quick now to, oh well, what's really going on inside, and
Yeah.
bringing that curiosity to the unit, to the family unit. Even if Wilder, our son, is acting up in some way, rather than like, oh, he's such a pain, we get to, we're not perfect at it, but we're pretty good at really turning it on its head and saying like, okay, well, what is he showing us, and what's going on between us, between her and I, or
Mm.
what's going on in the family unit. I have a good friend of mine, Ryan. He has 7 kids, and that was his advice. He said, when things are good in the marriage, the kids are great. The kids behave and they are loving it because they're feeling mom and dad's love. And when mom and dad are in love, be a kid for a second. How does that feel? Ah, all is well in the world, right? But
Mm.
when there's conflict and when there's things aren't quite there and the love isn't flowing, then the kids can feel that, and then the kids start acting up, or the whole family unit sort of gets upended a little bit.
Oh, yes, so true. That's wonderful. And just when somebody is your when your spouse is in pain and they're acting out from it, you know, or they're doing some of the behaviors that they do that you may not like, and it's kind of a repetitive behavior.
Yeah,
It's so easy to go into a judgment about that because it's frustrating. It's more like, well, they're not improving on that
yeah,
type of attitude.
yeah,
And any advice, the because that's like a deep one,
yeah,
when
yeah,
it gets to that deep, it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction to judge.
yes,
And I think so many people do that, and it's almost like they don't want to do it, but they're judging before they know it, and then the negative thoughts come in, and they're trying to hold all of that down, and before they know it, they say something stupid.
yep, yeah. I mean, that's definitely a area that I have noticed, and I am diligently, like you had mentioned. There's I think it comes from the Gurdjieff work. Actually, they call it an inner stop, where you just I'm just not going there, right? But you can only do that so many times before it builds up, and
Yep.
there does, resentment is part of that judgment process, and so yeah, there's definitely yeah, particularly in relationships where there's a cumulative effect. How do
Mm-hmm.
you stay out of that fixing them, and it really comes down to, can you accept somebody how they are?
Mm.
And this is another thing, I will tip my hat to Steve Flynn. He walked that walk when he was my guru, my teacher, my mentor. He was very flawed, and he was very um, open about that, and not in a way of flaunting it. He was working on it, working on himself, and trying to, always better himself and better his surroundings. But he would be willing to share. It's hard to be in a teacher position and share your vulnerabilities, share your weaknesses and your flaws. But he was modeling that, and so often the guru personality can do no wrong. And
Yes.
as we all know, that's where all sorts of shadow things creep up. And so he was willing to let his shadow side be seen, so that it didn't have that power. And so there's something similar there, because he was able to own those flaws. It showed there was an accepting of himself. And I think that's what's tricky, because our culture, you mentioned in Austin, and I think largely self-improvement is seeing a huge boom right now. It's very trendy, which is a great thing. Healing is on the
Yes.
rise. And
Hey.
how do you how do you maintain both of those things? That how I
Yeah.
am with all of my flaws is perfectly okay. I love how I am, and I want to be better, and I want to do more.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that in yourself?
It's a slow boat sometimes, I think, and we see that
Mm,
with Steve, and I see it in myself. That
yeah,
issues that there's some common themes that keep reoccurring,
yeah,
and I get better and better with them.
yeah,
But if I want to go deeper into them, I have to be very humble with what they are
yeah,
and keep what you keep saying is curious
yeah,
and find tools that you like using. I use different tools than you,
yeah,
but you feel comfortable with these tools. They work
yeah,
for you. You've seen them work with others, and therefore, you know, they feel right.
yeah, yeah. Well, I love that you mentioned the coming from the heart, that keeps you in that place of non-judgment. And if you could anchor
Yes.
there, and the more fully you anchor there, then, oh, I don't feel the judgment. It's only when the mind takes over that here comes the train of judgment. So just noticing that, and yeah,
Yeah. 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 And I love it. Just objectivity, a little detachment,
yeah,
and it starts to open up. And then, as one of the words you used, what you said the first of the show, authenticity shows up
yeah,
because you're connected with that person. The
yeah,
judgment's shed away, and you're real, and that person has a safe place to feel real.
Yeah. Another Steveism was becoming brand new,
Ha
and
ha
that
ha.
speaks to that moment of authenticity where that pops forward again. You let go
Yeah,
of the judgment and the mind that was repressing or stuffing it, and then you feel, oh, here it is, brand new. And in a relationship, oh, we're in a clearing of brand new, and how nice that feels. Right?
it does.
Yeah.
It kind of gets you right to that core point of why, core source of why you fell in love with that person,
Yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
wonderful place to return to.
Yes.
I always thought about my parents because they argued. They had problems that continually repeated. You
Yeah.
know, my father never really got to that. And I always wondered, it's like, how can you keep loving each other when you have all of these repetitive frustrations that just kind
Yeah.
of build and build
Yeah.
and
You can
build
almost see them just
upon them?
glommed on top, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, how do you clean that up?
Yeah, and you
You
do
know?
know, like you said, underneath all that, there is a real nugget of deep love, but it's so buried, it doesn't have a chance to be there and breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think about this love? Like, I've been writing about this. I'm writing about I got a new book called, I'm writing on a book called, this is the first time I've said this in public, The
Hey.
Wild Feminine of Boogarosh.
Oh.
And so in The Wild Feminine of Boogarosh, I keep reflecting about there's love through familiarity, that we know each other and we've grown together with that. And we've gone through the good, bad, and the ugly together. And it's, for some people, it's still good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Uh, but then there comes this place, if you can clean all of that stuff out and you remember why you love that person and you're in that place, in that fresh new place, a bountiful amount of creativity starts to show up
Hmm.
because your essence is alive and you're excited about each other.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
I love that
it,
as
it,
a it's almost like a approach for relationship, for partnership, keeping that what you just described. If you can maintain the energy there, you'll stay in that in a beautiful, loving, creative space.
yeah, yeah, it's so much fun to be able to create with somebody that you love
It is.
and open that up.
Yeah.
And it can be a marriage or a friendship, or for me, a previous marriage that
Yeah.
we're very good friends.
Yeah.
We still create things together because we do some of the work that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So let's just change the focus because you're a musician, you're an artist, you do all of these things. I don't. You just must be one busy guy. How do you how do you bring presence into art
Yeah.
and music? What can you share with everybody to get their creative side more in tune? A little
Well,
pun there.
I want to share one story, which is a testament to inner work. If somebody has their skepticism of like, well, what's what? I don't want to go meddling around in all of my inner workings. So this was about maybe 4 years ago now. I was working with Steve, and I was doing a big transformational piece around my mother. And I've always had a decent relationship with her, but it was like surfacey in a little bit of ways. All my
Mhm.
needs were met, and I love you, it's great, hi. But there wasn't that deep when we said, like, when you really see somebody, really deeper loving, deeper communication. It just sort of wasn't there, and a number of reasons. But one of them, I got in touch with who she really is on a deeper level, not just this person who I've always called mom, but really getting to see, oh, there's another soul, another being there. And wow, she's incredible. What an amazing human. And oh, that's my mother. And I just fell in love with her as a person, right? And I had this huge heart
Mm,
opening, just hard to even describe. Such a different energy than what I had previously. And that exact same weekend, I had a friend who was an artist show me how to do portraits. She said, "Oh, have you ever tried painting?" And I, previous to that, I had dabbled a little bit, I'd drawn a little bit, but I had never painted. And she showed it to me, and I did it. And she stood back. She was like, "I've shown 30 different people how to do this, and nobody has done what you just did." And I was just creating these amazing portraits now, and it's in me. My mom is an artist. My mom has that gift in her, uh, and in falling in love with her again, it passed it down to me. I was able to receive her gifts. And so it's
Hmm.
still a shock to me when I paint. I'm like, where the hell did this come from? It just flows through me. And so I love to share that because
Yeah,
there's all
I'd
sorts
say,
of gifts that are,
yeah, it's almost like your resistance went down to her.
yep,
The love opened to creativity.
yep,
And I have seen your work.
yeah.
I don't know if you know that, but
Oh,
you know, yours is at Third Eye Lounge
yeah, yeah,
in Austin,
exactly.
Texas.
That's right.
We'll just make a plug for Third Eye Lounge, the
Hey,
Cacao Bar in Austin, Texas, at
that's
Casa
right.
de Luz, the neighborhood or community we all know and love so well.
Yeah,
Um, they have Joseph Mach's work there.
yeah. And
So,
then part of that, I will, to sort of more to your question, there's most people that I work with, the first thing that happens when they put a paintbrush on the canvas, there's this inner critic. Oh, don't make the wrong thing.
mm,
No, don't do it like that. Oh, the color's wrong. Your stroke is. And so, because I've done a lot of work as a musician, clearing some of those voices and saying, hey, shut up. Just trust it. Let's go. It's fine. You're great. I was able to just let it flow out of me. And I'd say that's where presence and creativity have their greatest place, is when there's not those barriers, those parts, those critics in the way, just like you said about connecting with a partner, and there's just this blossoming of creativity. And it is similar to when a flower suddenly just busts open, right?
yes.
So yeah, I would say the presence is the absence of those parts nagging, or those other plates that you're trying to spin, right? And when you don't have those, you're able to focus, and you're able to just,
Anything that you do to prep yourself for that?
yeah. So it's a lot of the same tools that I described about if I'm trying to set the table for a workshop or for a session to get grounded. So I do a series of, I have them on my website and on my Instagram, a couple of different videos of just like the gorilla toes, and then also some breath work that gets you to get grounded, to get embodied. I do a buffer, which is like like just like a car buffer. You use that
Hmm.
on your body, and that gets you again just really embodied and out of the mind.
Mm.
One, yeah, I could do that as a quick meditation. Steve studied with Thich Nhat Hanh, and one of his easy meditations is called Each Breath. Each breath, each step. And it's literally as you breathe in, you raise your hand. And then when you breathe out, you lower your hand. And that gives the mind something to do. Just like when you have your
Mm.
eyes closed and you track the breath, this gives your body a chance to do it as well. And
Yeah.
I'll do that, and even just a few minutes of doing that, and it just, that whole monkey mind that's got to do this, and what's on the to do list tomorrow, and blah, 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 it just gets like it's tamed.
Mm.
Like you're petting this cat. Okay.
I think that's one of the hardest things is to get the monkey mind out of there
I
and
know.
that
It's,
chattering little uh, part of you that always wants to think and be moving along.
yeah,
Um, it's really difficult. And I say I still got it, even though I've been a meditator and activator of energies and all of this consciousness work. It's still there. And I keep using some of the same techniques of curiosity and allowance.
yeah,
Uh, but boy, I'm always willing to learn something else
yeah,
because
yeah.
I haven't got it.
And the tool belt expands, and what worked 2 weeks ago doesn't always work today, or there's seasons for different things. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed, it surely does. Um, yeah, that's such good advice to use. And then when the painting starts, or for you, the music starts,
Yeah.
uh, what's that like? I mean, because you're moving your fingers, you're singing. Is there any room for the monkey mind to exist in that reality?
I think my favorite test of that recently. I've been doing there's a series called the Living Room Storytelling for Adults. Have you ever been to that?
Oh yeah, I have. That's
Amparo's series.
oh yes.
So I've been had the honor of being the musical guest for a lot of it,
Whoa.
and basically the rundown is somebody will give a 10-minute talk, and then I would do a 2-minute musical reflection on their talk. And so it puts me in this improvised space most of the time. Sometimes I'll have it planned out, but for the most part, I've found it's better to just react to what's really there. Speeches change, somebody's story changes a little bit, and my job as they're speaking is to get really present and to try to latch on to what is the heart of what they're saying. Where are the different strands that I would be able to reflect? And so again, it's this very diligent. It's giving the mind a job and saying, all right, now really focus and just let it be touched. But the part that I wanted to share was when it comes time to then play and sing about what I just saw. There's just like somebody who's a freestyle rapper. I have so much respect for them now because I get to see it's their mind getting out of the way, and it's you
Wow.
literally just have to let the vessel do. I'll have maybe the seed of the idea, what I want to do, a couple of chords, but then I just let it come out, and it's not always spotless. It's definitely that's part of the thrill of it and the fun of watching somebody. If you ever watch Whose Line Is It Anyway, that was one of my favorite shows for a while because they're at their edge and they don't exactly know what's about to come out. But if I keep myself like tethered to the emotion that I want to express, then I can't go wrong. And there's this to even bring in like a divine quality. In those moments, I trust God and I say, God, put the words into my mouth
Yeah,
and help me to get out of the way.
it is a higher power coming through, or
Yeah.
higher energy, or
Yeah.
it is source
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming to the end of the show, and I want you to think about a message that you would like to give everybody, about a 1 minute message, and why you're thinking about that, Joseph. And we are talking to. I'm going to tell everybody.
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm forgetting my tether. Um, You are on Becoming Quantum Consciousness. My name is Bart Sharp, and my guest today is Joseph Mach. And you can find him at www.josephmach.com, and that's Mach. And you are on United Public Radio and UFO Paranormal Radio at 107.7 and 105.3 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Also, we're on Roku, our website, Facebook, YouTube, X, and Spreaker. And next week, we will be going into extraterrestrial reality with someone who basically channels and has conversations and some kind of a relationship with an extraterrestrial world. Her name is Sally Hart, and she'll be with us next week. And so, Joseph, what would you like to share as your parting thoughts as a gift to all the audience?
Ah, yeah. Well, I think in so many philosophies and religious worlds, there's the notion of knowing thyself. Knowing thyself is at the core of almost all of them. And that is really what I've been after, and what the tools that we've talked about is how to know yourself a little bit more. And I would add in loving thyself, love thyself. And if we can, all the time that I've invested in that, it's time well spent.
Mm.
Whether it's meditation, whether it was learning these tools, whether it was just having a conversation in order, as I talk to you, I get to know myself a little bit better. And that is what we're all doing here. We're all helping each other know ourselves just a little bit better. And so, yeah, if you're new to all of this and it sounds scary and weird, well, just give it a try. And life is this experiment, and you get to be the scientist. And so give it a try and see if your life gets better. That's what
Yes,
I'd say. Bring that curiosity.
indeed. That's wonderful. And you can contact Joseph at josephmach.com. He does sessions. He's connected all over the world, just like all of us are these days. So explore with Joseph. Joseph,
Right.
thank you for so much for being on the show.
Oh yeah, Bart. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yes. We'll see everybody next week on Becoming Quantum Conscious. Bye bye.